Sophia's world shattered in an instant as the richest man in Boston collapsed at her restaurant table, clutching his chest, gasping for breath. The other diners froze in horror, but only she understood his desperate words in perfect Italian. "My medication. In my coat, please. They can't know who I am." In that moment, her decision to help this arrogant man, who had moments ago tried to humiliate her, would change both their lives forever and expose secrets neither was prepared to reveal. As she fumbled through his expensive coat pockets, Sophia's mind raced. Just minutes earlier, Alexander Blackwood had sneered at her, ordering in fluent Italian, specifically to make her look foolish in front of important clients. If she walked away now, his carefully constructed facade as Boston's most eligible bachelor would crumble when his true identity was exposed. Yet something in his panicked eyes held her there, the same fear she'd lived with since fleeing her own past 3 years ago. "Take deep breaths," she whispered in flawless Italian as she slipped the pill under his tongue, their faces inches apart. His eyes widened in shock, not just at her linguistic abilities, but at the intimacy of this moment between strangers, bound by dangerous secrets. "Your secret is safe with me," she continued in Italian. "But I need to know why Boston's most notorious playboy speaks the language of my homeland like a native, and why he's so desperate to hide it." The question hung between them as color returned to his face, leaving both wondering who truly held the power now. When was the last time a story grabbed you like this? If you're enjoying this unexpected connection, hit that like button and let me know in the comments if you've ever misjudged someone. 2 weeks later, Alexander's sleek black Maserati pulled up outside Bella Notte, the modest Italian restaurant where Sophia worked. Their worlds couldn't be more different. His, filled with boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. Hers, a carefully constructed sanctuary of simple pleasures and anonymity. Yet he couldn't stop thinking about the woman who had saved his life and then vanished, refusing his attempts at contact or compensation. "Table for one," he said in English this time, watching her stiffen at the host's stand. The restaurant buzzed with whispers as he followed her to a secluded corner table. "I don't want your money," Sophia said before he could speak, her voice low and steady despite her racing heart. "I'm not here to offer any," Alexander replied, studying the woman whose beauty was only enhanced by her fierce independence. "I'm here because you're the first person in America who knows what I've spent 15 years hiding. And instead of using it against me, you kept my secret." Sophia leaned forward slightly, the candlelight catching the determination in her eyes. "We all have things we hide, Mr. Blackwood. Your Italian heritage seems hardly worth the elaborate deception." His laugh was bitter and brief. "If only it were that simple. My heritage isn't the secret. Sophia, It's what I left behind in Italy." He hesitated, then placed a small newspaper clipping on the table. "The man who raised me isn't my father. My real father was Antonio Vassallo." Sophia's face drained of color as she stared at the image of Italy's most notorious crime boss. "That's impossible," she whispered, pushing away from the table. "Antonio Vassallo's only son died in a fire 20 years ago." "Did he?" Alexander's expression was unreadable. Or was he smuggled to America and given a new identity by federal agents? If you're shocked by this revelation, imagine how Sophia feels! Drop a comment with your prediction about what happens next. The next morning, Sophia didn't show up for work. Her apartment was empty. Clothes gone, personal items vanished. Alexander stood in her small living room, cursing himself for revealing too much. The restaurant owner had reluctantly given him her address after he'd claimed an urgent family emergency. But now Alexander realized his mistake might have sent her running. What he couldn't know was that Sophia Ritchie wasn't just avoiding him. She was hiding in a budget hotel across town, frantically calling her uncle in Naples. "Carlo, you promised they wouldn't find me here," she whispered into the phone. "Blackwood claims to be Vassallo's son, the one who supposedly died in the fire." "That's impossible, nipote." Her uncle's voice crackled through the line. "But if it's true, you understand what this means." Sophia closed her eyes, the weight of realization crushing her chest. "It means I saved the life of the son of the man who ordered my parents' murder." The blood feud between the Ritchie and Vassallo families had claimed dozens of lives over 3 generations, including Sophia's parents 5 years ago. She had escaped to America, changed her name, and built a new life free from the violence that had defined her family for decades. Now, the past had found her in the most unexpected way. 3 days later, Alexander tracked her to the hotel. The hallway stretched before him, empty except for the chambermaid pushing her cart. Room 247, this had to be it. He raised his hand to knock when the door swung open, revealing Sophia with a small suitcase. "Going somewhere?" he asked quietly. Her eyes flashed with anger and fear. "How did you find me?" "The same way I built an empire from nothing. I'm persistent." He stepped closer. "Why did you run?" "Because I know who you really are," she whispered, her voice breaking. "And if you knew who I am, you'd either run too or kill me where I stand." Is blood thicker than water? Or can 2 people overcome generations of hatred? Hit that like button if you're on the edge of your seat! The cafe was neutral territory, busy enough for anonymity, but quiet enough for the conversation that would either save them both or destroy them. Sophia Ritchie. Alexander said her real name softly, watching her flinch. Daughter of Marco and Alina Ritchie. Others calmly my father considered his greatest enemies. He pushed his untouched coffee aside. I was 12 when they faked my death and brought me to America. I never saw my father again. Never wanted to. Why should I believe you? Sophia's fingers tightened around her cup. The Vasallos have hunted my family for generations. My parents were killed in their own home. After my supposed death. Alexander countered. I had nothing to do with it. You built your fortune with Vasallo money. I built my fortune despite the Vasallo name, he corrected, a flash of anger crossing his face. Everything I have, I earned by turning my back on that legacy. Sophia studied him, searching for deception. That day in the restaurant, was it coincidence that you chose to humiliate me in Italian? Alexander had the grace to look ashamed. I saw your name tag, Sophia, spelled the Italian way. I assumed you were American with Italian pretensions. I was. He hesitated, showing off for clients. I never expected you to understand. And I never expected the man who tried to embarrass me would carry his heart medication for a congenital condition that runs in the Vasallo family, the same condition that killed your grandfather at 40. His eyes widened. How could you possibly know that? Sophia's smile was sad. Because my father was the cardiologist who treated the Vasallo family for 20 years before the feud tore everything apart. If you're feeling the tension between these two, double, tap that like button. Can sworn enemies become something more? Over the following weeks, a fragile trust formed between them. Sophia returned to work, and Alexander became a regular at the small Italian restaurant. They were careful, meeting in public places, both aware that the past could catch up to them at any moment. Why did you save me that day? Alexander asked as they walked along the harbor one evening, the city lights reflecting on the dark water. You could have let me die. The same reason you're not horrified to be walking beside a Ricci, she replied. Because I'm more than my family name, and so are you. Their hands brushed as they walked, neither pulling away. The chemistry between them had been undeniable from the beginning. But both had been fighting it, afraid of what it might mean, what complications it would create. My board is pressuring me to expand internationally, Alexander said suddenly. They want to open offices in Naples. Sophia stopped walking. You can't go back to Italy if anyone recognized you. I know. His expression was grim. But refusing without explanation will raise questions I can't answer. Then find another way, she insisted, unexpectedly taking his hand. Because I'm not interested in attending another funeral. Alexander looked down at their joined hands, then back to her face. Does that mean you care what happens to me, Sophia Ricci? The moment hung between them, charged with possibility. Instead of answering, Sophia rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips gently to his. The kiss was brief but electric, breaking every unspoken rule they had established. That, she she whispered against his mouth, was a very dangerous mistake. Alexander's eyes darkened as he pulled her closer. Then, let's make another one. Are you feeling the sparks fly? Leave a comment if you believe love can overcome even the deepest divides. The headline on Alexander's tablet the next morning stopped his heart. Italian crime. Boss Antonio Vassallo, released from prison after key witness recants. Beneath was a photograph of the man he had spent 15 years trying to forget. Older now, hair gray at the temples, but with the same cold eyes Alexander remembered from childhood. His phone rang seconds later, Sophia's name flashing on the screen. Have you seen? She asked without preamble, her voice tight with fear. I'm looking at it now. Alexander moved to the window of his penthouse, scanning the street below out of habit. This changes everything. He'll come looking for you, Sophia said. Now that he's free. No, Alexander corrected grimly. He already knows where I am. The witness who recanted. Thomas Barker, my security chief until 3 months ago, when I fired him for embezzlement. The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia, listen to me carefully. Alexander continued, forcing his voice to remain calm. Pack whatever you need. I'm sending a car. Don't go to work. Don't talk to anyone. Running isn't the answer, she argued. We've both been running for years. This isn't up for debate. He snapped, fear making his tone harsh. My father doesn't forgive betrayal, and he doesn't leave loose ends. If he comes for me, anyone close to me is in danger. Including you, Sophia whispered. Alexander closed his eyes. 15 years of carefully constructed safety crumbling around him. Especially me. Is this the end for our star-crossed lovers? Or just the beginning of their greatest challenge? Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next! The security detail Alexander hired swept Sophia's apartment for bugs before escorting her to a private airfield where his jet waited. She had argued, insisting they face the threat together, but Alexander was adamant she needed to be as far away as possible. 3 days, he promised as they stood on the tarmac. Give me 3 days to meet with my father and end this. Then I'll come for you. And if you don't? Sophia challenged, refusing to cry despite the fear gripping her heart. Alexander took her face in his hands. Then move on. Build a new life. Forget me? I've already tried that, she said quietly. It didn't work. Their goodbye kiss was desperate, filled with all the words they hadn't yet said, might never get to say. As Sophia boarded the plane, Alexander pressed a small velvet box into her hand. Don't open it until you're in the air, he instructed. And Sophia, Ti amo. I should have said it sooner. The plane was taxiing when Sophia opened the box. Inside wasn't the ring she had half expected, but a small key attached to a paper with coordinates and instructions. Beneath it, a handwritten note. Plan B, because I've learned to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Wait for me. But if I don't come, this will keep you safe. 30,000 feet above the Atlantic, Sophia made her decision. The pilot was surprised when she handed him the new destination. But Alexander's instructions had been clear. Wherever Ms. Ritchie wanted to go, he was to take her. The plane banked, turning back toward Boston. If true love means fighting for someone, even when the odds are impossible, show your support with a like and share! Alexander waited in his office, the city skyline behind him darkening as evening approached. The message had been simple: a time, a place, his father's name. No threats, no demands. Just the certainty that the meeting would happen. The knock at his door came precisely at 8. Not his father, but two men in expensive suits, with the unmistakable bulge of shoulder holsters. "Mr. Vassallo will see you now," the taller one said, his accent purely Neapolitan. Alexander followed them to the elevator, down to the garage where a black SUV waited. The drive took less than 15 minutes, ending at an upscale restaurant, closed for a private event. Security guards stood at every entrance. Antonio Vassallo sat alone at a table in the center of the empty restaurant, a glass of red wine and an untouched plate of pasta before him. He looked up as Alexander approached, his face revealing nothing. "Alessandro," he said, using the Italian version of his son's name. "You look like your mother." Alexander remained standing. "I go by Alexander now. So I've heard." "Sit. We have much to discuss." "I prefer to stand." Antonio's smile didn't reach his eyes, always defiant. Even as a boy, he gestured to the chair again. "Sit, or my men will make you sit." "Your choice." Alexander sat, maintaining eye contact with the man who had once been the center of his world and then the source of his nightmares. 15 years. Antonio said quietly. 15 years I believed my only son burned to death. Imagine my surprise when I discovered you not only alive, but thriving as an American businessman. The authorities thought it best. Alexander replied carefully. After the attempt on my life, Antonio's eyebrows rose. Is that what they told you? That someone tried to kill you? He laughed, a harsh sound in the empty restaurant. No, Alessandro. The fire was meant for me. You were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Then why fake my death? Why not tell you I survived? Because, Antonio leaned forward, the fire was set by your mother's family, the richest. The shock must have shown on Alexander's face, because Antonio nodded grimly. Yes. Your mother's brother, Carlo Ritchie, confessed before he died. He didn't know you were in the house. The guilt drove him to suicide last year. Alexander's mind reeled. Carlo Ritchie, Sophia's uncle, the man who had helped her escape to America. The connections formed a web he couldn't untangle. I've come to take you home, Antonio continued, to reclaim what's mine. including my son? I'm not yours. Alexander said coldly. I stopped being yours the day I woke up in witness protection and was told my father cared more about his empire than his child. Lies! Antonio slammed his hand on the table. I searched for you for years! I nearly destroyed myself looking for you. And now you've found me. Alexander stood slowly. But I'm not the boy you lost. I've built my own life, my own legacy, one not stained with blood. You think your hands are clean? Antonio scoffed. The companies you've crushed, the lives you've ruined building your fortune. We're not so different, you and I. There's one significant difference, Alexander said quietly. I'm in love with Sophia Ritchie, and I choose her over any legacy you offer. Antonio's face transformed with rage. Ricky, you betray your family for the very blood that tried to destroy us. No, came a voice from behind them. He chooses to end a cycle of violence that has destroyed enough lives. Sophia stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 police officers. Are you holding your breath? Tap that like and subscribe button to see how this confrontation ends. Antonio's men reached for their weapons, but froze when they saw the officers. What have you done? Alexander asked Sophia, torn between admiration and terror for her safety. What you should have done, she replied, stepping into the room. I contacted the FBI, told them everything. She turned to Antonio. Including the location of evidence my parents hid before they were killed. Evidence of every crime the Vassallo family committed for the past 30 years. Antonio's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. That evidence was destroyed. Was it? Sophia reached into her purse and withdrew a small flash drive. My father was a cautious man. He kept copies. Multiple copies. More officers entered the restaurant, surrounding Antonio. This ends now? Sophia said firmly. No more vendettas. No more bloodshed. Antonio looked between his son and the woman he loved, calculation clear in his eyes. You would choose her over your own blood, after everything I've sacrificed to find you? I choose peace, Alexander said simply. Something you never understood. As the officers moved to arrest Antonio, he made one last desperate lunge, not toward an escape route, but toward Sophia. Alexander moved instinctively, placing himself between them. The flash of metal was almost too quick to see, but the pain that followed was unmistakable as Antonio's hidden blade found its mark. Alexander collapsed, Sophia's scream echoing in his ears as officers tackled his father to the ground. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Sophia's face above his, her tears falling onto his cheeks as she begged him not to leave her. If you're on the edge of your seat, you're not alone. Hit that like button and subscribe to see if love can truly conquer all. The steady beep of hospital equipment was the first thing Alexander heard as consciousness returned. The second was Sophia's voice, reading softly in Italian. A poem he recognized from childhood. "You stayed," he whispered, his voice rough from disuse. Sophia dropped the book, moving quickly to his side.
"You're awake."
Her eyes were red, rimmed from crying, dark circles beneath them, suggesting she hadn't slept. "How long?" he asked, trying to sit up and wincing at the pain in his abdomen. 3 days. She pressed him gently back onto the pillows. "The doctors weren't sure you'd." She swallowed hard, unable to finish. "My father." In federal custody, along with most of his organization. She took his hand, squeezing it tightly. "It's over, Alexander. Really over." He studied her face, still hardly believing she was there. "You were supposed to be on a plane." "Safe." "I couldn't leave you to face him alone," she said simply. "Not after I realized what Carlo had done." Alexander closed his eyes briefly. "Your uncle set the fire that started all of this." "Yes, and spent the rest of his life trying to atone for it." She touched his face gently. "The feud ends with us, Alexander. We can choose a different path." He turned his head to kiss her palm. "I already chose. I chose you. Even knowing my family tried to kill yours. Especially knowing that." He held her gaze. "Because it means we understand exactly what we're overcoming. Together." The road to recovery was long, not just for Alexander's physical wound, but for the emotional scars both carried. Antonio Vassallo was sentenced to life in prison. The evidence Sophia provided sealing his fate. His crime empire crumbled, leaving both families to rebuild from the ashes of their bloody history. 6 months later, Alexander and Sophia stood together on a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean. The Italian coast spread before them like a painting. "Are you sure about this?" Sophia asked, watching his face carefully. Coming back to Italy was a risk. Alexander took her hands in his. "Some risks are worth taking." He glanced back at the small stone chapel where their closest friends waited. "I wanted to do this here, where both our stories began, to prove that we can rewrite the ending." Sophia smiled through tears as he dropped to one knee, producing the ring she had expected to find in that box months ago. "Sophia Ricci, will you help me create a new legacy? One built on love instead of hatred." "Yes," she whispered, pulling him to his feet and into her arms. "In any language, in any country, my answer will always be yes." As they sealed their promise with a kiss, the sun, setting behind them, cast their joined shadows far across the ancient stones. No longer two people divided by history, but one future united by choice. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the most powerful weapon against hatred is love, and the bravest choice we can make is forgiveness. What family stories have shaped your life? Share in the comments below!